everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to do something a bit different. So going forward every week I'm going to either be talking about a musical topic, a Eurovision topic, something along those lines. So this week what I want to talk about is 5 albums that I'm really enjoying right now, and maybe you could have a listen to these, and I'm going to give you some recommended songs from each album that I think are must listen tos. Let me know down below, of course, what you think. Have you listened to any of these albums? Maybe if you listen to them after my video, let me know what you think, if there's any songs that you like that I haven't mentioned as well. I'm the kind of person that likes to listen to music seasonally, so in the summer months I gravitate more towards certain genres of music over others, and then when it gets a bit colder I tend to listen to other genres. So in this case, the stuff I'm going to be talking about today is more a mixture of EDM and rock music. So let's start with a band which I've loved for about 10-12 years now, since I was a teenager, and that's Arcade Fire. So Arcade Fire are a kind of indie rock band from Canada, and they've been going for a very long time now, but I highly recommend that you listen to them. They're award winning, they're very popular in some demographics as well. People who tend to like rock, indie music as well probably will like Arcade Fire. So there's 2 albums I want to talk about here. I'm cheating a bit because I couldn't choose between them. So there's their album from 2010 called The Suburbs, and then there's their album from 2013 called Reflektor. And these 2 albums are stunning from start to finish, and they're just great to listen to if you're out and about walking, if you're enjoying the sunshine. The first song I want to talk about from The Suburbs is the title track, The Suburbs, because I think it's just fantastic.
Sometimes I can't believe it. I'm moving past the feeling.
So this has got definitely more of a mixture of Britpop / glam rock vibe in the percussion. It builds up really nicely. This is one of the first songs I've ever heard from Arcade Fire, and I remember when I listened to it I thought they might be a British band, because the sound to me came across as just really British, sort of like something potentially harkening back to the 60s but with a bit more of a 90s flavour in there. Hard to explain, but I really like this track. So what kind of sold me with this particular track is the way the chords move with the music. It's really well put together, and the tension in the music as well is really nice, because the chord progression isn't particularly filled with too many major chords. It's all a lot of minor chords, and it doesn't resolve too often, and that's what's really nice. And you've got this descending melody line in the octave moving down, which is superb, and it really fits with the instrumental. So I highly recommend listening to The Suburbs. And the next track I want to talk about, which is from Reflektor, is also the title track, called Reflektor, and this one is 7 minutes of absolute bliss. I tend to like pieces that have a disco beat. I just absolutely love disco beats, and Reflektor has that from start to finish. It's incredible. So with Reflektor, it starts off kind of mysteriously, and then it gradually builds up throughout the song. You've got this mixture of French and English lyrics as well, like a Canadian French vibe, which is lovely. And then by the end it absolutely explodes, and what is just incredible about this song is the tension between the 2 vocalists. So there's a female and male vocalist, and they're kind of exchanging this musical conversation, and it's really interesting to listen to. It's so tense, and then it explodes. There's this piano line towards the end, which is really simple if you just isolate it, but then added into the track it's just perfect. It fits so well. And then that also is accompanied just a bit before by this brass line as well, and saxophones, which play the similar progression. So good. I highly recommend this track, and other tracks I recommend from these albums. So from The Suburbs I recommend Sprawl 2, which also has a beautiful disco beat behind it, a bit slower and a really great key change at the end, and just really high intensity vocals, really high up in the register as well for the female lead singer, brilliant. Deep Blue as well, that has a really beautiful melody line, it's a great one to listen to. And then from Reflektor there's Afterlife as well, that has some more classical elements to it which are lovely. And then You Already Know is also a beautiful song, so listen to those if you have time. So the next album I'm going to talk about is by Röyksopp, who are a duo who make electronic music from Norway, and their first album from 2001 called Melody AM. So this is a really dynamic group who make really great music. The evolution of their music from when they first started to the music that they make now is massive in terms of the way that the sound has developed for them. But their first album is the one I want to talk about because this one is just perfect for a summer's day. It's so chill. It's great for commute as well. I don't know why, but every time I get on the train, I put this album on and it just really complements that. I don't know. Maybe if you try it yourself, you understand what I mean. But this album is really cool because of the use of sampling. Firstly, I'm a massive fan of sampling, and in fact my university dissertation was about sampling in French house music, which is a genre I absolutely love as well. But with Melody AM, they use really simple samples from older music, but they absolutely develop them so much to the point where it's almost unrecognisable, and they've created almost a whole new finished product. And that's what I like about sampling, when it's really creative to the point where it's hard to connect the new product to the old product. So one of the songs on this album, which is probably one of their most famous, is called Apple, or it means apple in English. This one has no vocals. It's literally this tiny little sample that they've taken from a previous song and then they've reworked it. It's like 3 or 4 notes, but it sounds really cool. It's got this sort of trip hop beat behind it, and then it just builds, it develops really nicely, and it's so laid back. So I recommend that one. And then there's also a more of a slightly Latin vibe club beat song called Paulino from the album as well, which is really interesting. It gets your foot tapping. I recommend that one too. But one that I really like is called Remind Me. Now Remind Me from this album is really nice because it actually has a vocal line and lyrics, and that's quite rare to find in some of their music because they tend to do more instrumental. But when they add a little bit of a vocal and a bit of a story behind it, it's really nice. So with Remind Me, what I really like about it is the general sound. The way that they've designed it to sound is really cool. They've used these tiny little synths in there which are really meek and mild but really nice to listen to. They complement the singing voice really well, and it's just got this kind of interesting garage type of beat, but it's really mild. It's not your typical UK garage sound. It's a much milder, more refreshing approach, I think, which is super nice. And then they also use some really nice chords. I think the chords that they use are not very conventional because you think it's going one way, but it doesn't, and that's what's really nice. It's slightly more tense, a bit more off balance than other music, especially other club music, which seems to follow maybe a 4-chord progression. What Röyksopp do is they kind of add maybe 10 chords into the song and you don't know where it's going, but they manage to kind of create a melody on top of that that really suits this unconventional approach, which is just, you know, something I love as well. I get high off music that completely defies my expectations, and I'm very picky as well, so I really do like this album. So I'd give it a listen if I were you. And other songs you should listen to are So Easy, which is another one of their more popular ones, and In Space, which has just this beautiful opening and then it explodes into this nice drum beat as well. So listen to those. Now the next album I want to gush about is by a Scottish EDM group called Chvrches, who some of you may have heard of, and it's their most recent album from last year called Screen Violence. Now this album, for me, start to finish, is just such a journey. I really do like Chvrches because they take this kind of 80s approach with everything. They have the singer-songwriter at the front, Lauren, who kind of takes more of a role of writing a storyline in the music and then creating these melodies. And then the two guys at the back have this more producer and instrumentalist approach, and they really use these just incredible sounds and lots of arpeggiation, lots of repetition and building up of all these layers of sounds to create this kind of modern approach to an 80s synth pop kind of genre, which I think is really clever. So they set themselves apart from the competition in that way. I think, you know, this album really demonstrates that, because they've got this range of the kind of hyper pop, synth pop, and then they've got more of a traditional approach when they did a collab with Rob Smith from The Cure in the song called How Not to Drown, which is a beautiful song. It has more of a relaxed drum beat. They've got piano and guitars in there and just a really well crafted melody. So I recommend to listen to that one. And I saw it live as well. I went to see them live this year and it was such a great experience. But they're really good at doing double choruses, Chvrches. So they basically give you what you think is the chorus, and then they give you another one straight after it, which is even better. And it's really clever songwriting. Another song from this album which I absolutely love is called Asking for a Friend. So this one, for me, it's the way it builds and the way it explodes right at the end. It's so unpredictable, but it's really nice to listen to. You're just on a journey throughout the song. The rhythm of the melody line is much more off the beat. It's at the latter half of each bar, which is nice. It feels more tense, and yeah, I think the lyrics of it too are really relatable. They're really nice. It's a great album, so check it out if you haven't. I highly recommend it. And then other songs of this album which I would definitely recommend. There's California, which is a bit more laid back, but it's got a nice chorus melody. There's Good Girls, which is a kind of typical pop song. It's got that double chorus vibe as well. Really good. And then Bitter End, which is one of the more up-tempo tracks on the album. It's probably the fastest one, actually. It's really, really nice. Especially kind of the heights of her vocals in that one is stand out. So I would highly recommend this band in general, but their album called Scream Violence. Really great stuff. And the fourth album I want to talk to you guys about is by an artist that's been around for a very long time now. She's very, very talented, Fiona Apple, and her most recent album from 2020 called Fetch the Bolt Cutters. So when this album came out during the pandemic, it sort of made the news a bit because it got something like 100% rating on Metacritic or Pitchfork, I can't remember which one, but there's not very many albums that have actually been able to get the perfect score. So this one intrigued me because I've always been a fan of Fiona Apple, but I had taken a bit of a break from listening to her music and I was sort of exploring other avenues with my genres and styles and tastes that I liked. When I came back to this album, I was like, yeah, I get why this one has 100% score, because it's faultless from start to finish. I couldn't find any fault in it. It was so crazy, experimental, filled with all these unexpected sounds. There's this song off it called I Want You to Love Me, which is a kind of typical Fiona Apple ballad with this swung rhythm, very piano led, and then at the end she just makes dolphin noises, and it's super wacky, but it's really cool. So if you're into that more kind of experimental and avant-garde sound, I would listen to this one. So the song I want to talk about from this album is called Shamika.
I used to march down the windy sidewalk, slapping my leg with the riding crop, thinking it made me come off.
So this is again a very, very piano-led song. It takes center stage, but the piano is kind of manic, and it feels just really unexpected. It's nothing like any other artist I've heard. It just sounds so unique, and the piano is just got this really vibrant tone. It feels like it's propelling the whole song forward. It's really, really nice. And then there's these little breaks in the instrumental as well to really punctuate the vocal and then the lyrics and the whole meaning as well. It really kind of pushes to the forefront. It's so cool. And then what also is cool about this album is it feels like it was all live recorded. The instruments sound super fresh and raw, like it was recorded in a basement. They have like barking dog noises to create more of a percussive sound. Yeah, so if you want to try something new and kind of avant-garde, I would pick this one. just really creative lyrics, songwriting, just in awe of it. And then the last album I want to talk to you guys about is by Wolf Alice, which is a band I've kind of banged on about quite a bit because I really like their music. So this is Blue Weekend. It's the album they released last year after a couple of years of not releasing any music. So this album, this album is, again, a really great journey from start to finish. It opens with this song called The Beach, which is a standout track for me. The Beach is this song that opens really quietly. It's just like a drum sound and then this raspy vocal that's almost like sung in a whisper. And then it builds and builds and builds, but it's like a huge explosion in your headphones when you're listening to it. So you got all this percussion and then the bass and the guitars come in, but it just fills the sound. It's like there's not a single gap in the sound. It's just so nice to listen to. So it opens with that and then it builds over and over and over in all the tracks, and then you reach this song called Lipstick on the Glass, which also has that effect of this massive explosion in your headphones where you just feel completely kind of enraptured in the music. This is a really sad song. It's about catching your partner cheating on you but then still like staying with them. So it's got a lot of kind of sad vibes to it. Obviously, it's just the way this song takes you on a journey, the way it ebbs and flows in the production, in the backing. You have these kind of really laid back, stripped back verses with just a bit of guitar and then the vocals, and then the chorus comes in and it's like a 10-layer harmony of Ellie's voice just pushing through the whole track.
I'll take you back. Yeah, I know it seems surprising when there's lipstick still on the glass.
So beautiful. But this album is really interesting because Wolf Alice are one of those bands that kind of flirt with a shoegaze sound, a little bit of dream pop in there. And then in other songs, they just go full out kind of screamo, really loud instruments. And you've got this with, there's a song on the album called Play the Greatest Hits, which is super in your face. It's like screamed the whole way through. There's like not really any melody as such. The melody comes from this tiny little synthesizer keyboard, and that's like it plays like a scalic movement, and everything else is just screaming, but it's the rhythms of the screaming which make the song really interesting to listen to. And then of course the lyrics take center stage. The lyrics are kind of mocking people who turn up to your gig only to listen to your greatest hits and not actually delve into deep down into your other discography, which I think is a pretty cool approach to take to write a song. So other songs from this album I would recommend: Safe from Heartbreak, really nice kind of Fleetwood Mac style, I think, song. It's got just really beautiful lyrics. It's like a really sad subject matter, but the melody's really happy, and I love that mismatch. I think it's really beautifully done. And then there's Smile as well, which has got a really good chorus, and it's kind of halfway between that dream pop and screamo sound. So yeah, I'd highly recommend this album as well. So let me know down below in the comments what you think of the songs I've suggested in the albums. Have you listened to any of these, that kind of thing? And stay tuned, I'll be back next Saturday for another either Eurovision themed or musical themed video, and I hope you guys have a good rest of the weekend, and I'll see you next week. Bye.